glory hogging on you.
Hey everybody, how's it going? It's me, Derek.
And I am still Mike.
And we're doing our top 10 list, sort of. In this episode, we're talking about 1980s trends. It was a period that we lived through.
And loved dearly. A lot of it because we were kids and didn't have to worry about financial matters and, the president fucking shit up.
Yeah. But,
Because there were a lot of people that despised Reaganomics, and we were like, what's that? Oh, G.I. Joe.
And there was a lot of trendy stuff in the 80s. I mean...
Oh, there was. It was like new shit every week. I mean, friendship bracelets and beads. And you remember the little safety pins with the beads on them that they'd get for their shoes with their gimmicky fucking trendy-ass shoelaces. Many of which were like different colors.
Yeah. And we're not just talking about clothing trends with this list. We're talking about trends in general. So like TV shows being formulaic.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah. Which is kind of one of my things.
Yeah. So let's get started with our number 5s.
Okay. My number 5 is toy marketing cartoons. Prior to the 80s, cartoons were just cartoons. They were entertainment for kids. But in the 80s, there became a trend of making cartoons that were specifically geared to sell toys and other merchandising. G.I. Joe, He-Man, the Thundercats.
Thundercats, yeah.
And there were a bunch of... There was a million. Transformers, GoBots.
Gem and the Holograms.
Yeah. I mean, it's that shit. Even your Ghostbusters was...
Yeah, there was a huge Ghostbusters cartoon in the late 80s.
Yeah, and I loved it. I mean, it was better than the other Ghostbusters cartoon, which was really fucked up and weird.
That one was based on like a 1950s TV show.
Yeah, and it was awful.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of good cartoons in the 80s. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Which wasn't based more to sell the toys, but... They made the toys first, and they ended up having to make shows with those characters in them.
Yeah, it was cartoons that were commercials. And that shit all started when we were kids. And we fucking bought into it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, the great toys and great cartoons. I mean, I can't complain about.
There was a lot of that stuff that, they tried the G.I. Joe formula. And I'm just going to call it the G.I. Joe formula because that was probably the biggest one.
What it is,
Between G.I. Joe and Transformers, those were the two really, really big ones.
Yeah.
But anyway,
they both follow the same format.
They did.
But
so,
good pick.
What was your number 5?
Large boom boxes.
Oh,
carrying around big old ghetto blasters.
Yeah,
we had the little tiny ones because we couldn't get the big ones, but
Dan had the big one.
Oh yeah, I remember that big monster he had.
Yeah, and it needed like 10 fucking D-cell batteries, and you could basically look cool to the end of the block.
Yeah, they had entire strips of equalizers across the front of them.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Decks.
It was insane.
Yeah,
and they drained batteries. I mean,
yeah.
Things we didn't know when we were kids is that when the guy in the movie had the big radio on his shoulder and was bebopping down the street, he wasn't listening to anything. There was a Foley artist that stuck the music in after. That shit was all done in post because there's no way they could have gotten through a day worth of shooting without having an entire dumpster full of D-cell batteries.
And when we saw guys do it in real life, he wasn't listening to anything either. He actually had a rap artist behind him. It was Young MC. He was doing everything for everybody back then.
Yeah. Oh my God! You remember "I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker"?
Yeah.
Like, oh, who the hell are these guys? They're my theme music. Every hero needs some. But yeah, that was very cool.
But
okay.
Number 4s.
Number 4. Shredded shirts. Do you remember there was a period when people would take a t-shirt, rip off the sleeves, rip off the collar, and then rip that fucker midriff till it was basically a rudimentary sports bra.
To the best effect, it was done on Madonna.
Yeah. Women, it was a great look. Guys, It was a questionable look.
Yeah. There was a lot of questionable looks on guys in the 80s.
Yeah. Oh, remember those tiny little shorts in Rocky 3?
Yeah.
And jumping up and down in the surf, and you're like,
I remember those tiny little shorts in gym class when I was wearing them. And
yes,
regretting
well, because you
every minute of it.
had to.
Regretting every minute of it.
Yeah.
It's like, this is showing way too much leg.
Right. So what's your number 4?
My number 4, and I have to look again. Oh, the term dude. Now, we still use the term dude today.
Constantly.
But nowhere near as much as we did in the 80s.
Right. I would broaden that out and say that there was a lot of gimmicky language in the 80s. Remember when everything was rad?
Yeah, totally.
Totally. Yeah. There was a lot of that stuff going on, and there would be 1 or 2 new words that would just get beaten into the ground over the school year, and then by the next school year, over the summer, it changed. Do you remember they did a Wayne's World sketch about that once, where Bruce Willis came on and he gave out the cool word for the next school year?
Oh yeah. Yeah, Saturday Night Live. The actual Wayne's World sketch, not just the movies, but
yeah, no, it was a sketch.
Yeah, just like dude was like every other word.
Yeah,
dude, did you dude? Hey, dude. Dude.
Did you see Basketball? Do you remember when they did the dudes back and forth and had a conversation with just that word? That shit was funny. All right, so number 3 on mine, and leg warmers.
Yeah.
I didn't wear leg warmers, but it was a very intriguing look for a budding young man.
Yeah.
I just like turning on the TV, and like Fame, I don't remember what any of the plots were on Fame. I was just going, yeah. Dance for me.
She's a maniac.
Yeah. Flashdance.
That scene where she's
just
running her legs off with the little leg warmers.
Yeah, Flashdance set that shit off, man, and it got beat.
Yeah, I can't argue with leg warmers.
Yeah, no, I love me some leg warmers. But anyway, your number 3.
Catchphrases in action movies.
Action movie heroes. Oh God, yes. Schwarzenegger was so guilty.
Yeah. And catchphrases in general. It wasn't just action movies, but everybody had a catchphrase in the 80s.
Where's the beef?
Yeah. What you talk about, Willis?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had a catchphrase in the 80s, and it was fun. I mean, it got a little bit overblown at points.
Yeah.
But I do kind of miss that.
I kind of enjoyed the ones where they tried to make a catchphrase and it completely failed. That was some funny shit. But anyway, number 2, I have music gimmicks as a broad sort of thing, because in the 80s you got electronic music. Some asshole made up the guitar. There was a lot of synthesizers going on. Electronic music became a big thing. Somehow punk rock got its first rebranding in the 80s. Because suddenly punk rock became new wave.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the punk rock bands at the time wanted to make money. Yeah. So people like Blondie,
which under the old school punk,
Talking Heads, all kind of went more towards being slightly more pop, and that's where the synth came in. Because the synth was the new sound.
Yeah, and of course, all the hardcore punkers were like, "You sold out! We hate you!" And all the people that sold out were going, "Okay, I got this big pile of money over here, so fuck you and your local scene." And, because I understand them wanting to sell out. I mean, it's part of the punk sensibility was we want to be poor and dirty and grungy and unpopular. Well, because if you become popular, you have betrayed us. They were proto-hipsters.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the downside to, like you said, to being, to not selling out, to being to a point where no matter what, you're not gonna sell out, is that you end up being your own
worst
thing
enemy
that you're against.
Yeah.
You know, you end up being your own. You're conforming to something other than that.
Yeah, you're conforming to the non-conformity.
Yes. And it's just a double-edged sword.
Yeah, which again, there was a thing on South Park about that.
Yes.
Your number 2.
My number 2, we already touched on 80s cartoons for toy lines. As a result of that, the government passed a law that stated that if you were going to make a cartoon that was primarily set up to sell to kids, you had to have public service announcements afterwards.
Oh, G.I. Joe.
So my favorite number 2 thing that I missed from 80s trends
was PSAs.
Was PSAs after cartoons.
Yeah.
I wish they still did it. I wish they still did it because kids need some kind of moral guidance now, and it would be nice to actually see that.
Well, and that was actually kind of nice for another trend in the 80s, which was latchkey kids.
Yeah.
You know, parents are working and kids are home by themselves, and, you know, if the parents aren't there to guide you morally and they're just junking out in front of the TV anyway, it can't hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I miss it. And now you know.
And knowing is half the battle.
Na, na, na.
All right. So my number 1, going back to my overblown hormonal craziness in the 80s. Okay. And the 90s and now. Was the French cut bikini. That motherfucker that came way
the way
up over the
hips.
and then ran nice and narrow in the back, and it you know, that was nice. I almost went thong and gave credit to the Brazilians, but it was kind of a neck and neck thing, and then they sort of merged and it was all good.
Yeah, I think the bikini, the French cut bikini, is more synonymous with the 80s. I think it's more something that people recognize from the 80s, whereas like the thong was more of a later period.
Yeah.
As far as
it
like,
kind of rolled up early
popularity.
90s. I think the thong was just kind of the next progression to removing some material.
Yeah.
This is nice, but how can we make it better by making it less?
I remember we had a lot of posters. B and I had a lot of posters up in our room.
Oh, yeah.
And the neighbor girls would come over and put stuff on them to cover them up a little bit more.
Yeah.
And they would ruin the posters.
Yeah,
and he would get mad.
And I don't blame him. So what's your number 1?
My number 1, arcades.
Oh,
hanging out in the arcade.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing that we did regularly on a regular basis in the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
It was played video games in the arcade.
Yeah.
We didn't have the fancy schmancy home consoles like they've got now.
Yeah.
We had Atari. We had Nintendo.
We had the Nintendo and the Atari, and later the Sega Master System.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Sega was kind of late to the game.
Yeah, that was like 88, 89.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I had a 8-bit Nintendo. Hell yeah, I love that thing.
But you still didn't have all the games that you wanted.
Well, it didn't have all the games that you wanted. It didn't have the atmosphere of being in the arcade.
Yeah.
And it didn't have cabinets.
Yeah.
And some cabinets were really integral to the feel of the game. You remember the X-Wing? Game, the attack on the Death Star, the ray trace thing, which had a nice big sit down cabinet, and you had a control yoke, and it was that was so. I will buy one of those now and put it in my spare bedroom, dude.
Yeah, there's something.
My rent might get raised.
There's something to be said about having to put money into the machine as you're playing it because you are trying really hard to get as far as you can on that quarter, make that quarter last.
There's a sense of value to it.
Yeah,
whereas
like Gauntlet, playing Gauntlet at home is not the same as playing at the arcade because you had a finite amount of life. Whereas we've gotten arcade port overs onto the home systems, and you can just keep hitting the quarter button over and over again, and you just add more life.
Well, and there's a visceral, physical thing to standing up in front of a cabinet and having a hold of the stick and the buttons,
being shoulder to shoulder with the guy,
and you're leaning in, and there's a big physical component to the cabinet style arcade machines, and
Yeah, and just
I miss that.
the darkness and the loud noises of all the video games making sound at the same time, and the pinball
There's an
machines in the
upside.
background.
The upside is that nostalgia is bringing that shit back now.
Yeah,
Because we can still go to Madison and go over to Rossi's, and
we can go to Rossi's on Monona Drive.
Yep,
in
and
Madison, Wisconsin. Here, if you guys get a chance, head on over there and check that out. That's my number one.
oh, all right.
And yeah, thanks for joining us. Go out and do some of the stuff. Appreciate your 80s, and we'll catch you next week.
Right. Later.
Bye.